The United Federation of Planets, by extension Starfleet, uses a classification system to identify different planets and their environments. This is a far simpler system than the real-life counterpart that we use today that takes into account a planet's mass, orbit, composition, and even the star it orbits, if any. The use of the simple letters attributed to a planetary object is probably derived from the star classification system, where O, B, A, F, G, K and M indicate the colour of the star. That's a simplification, and I'm sure astronomy buffs out there can explain it a lot better. In universe though, the system adopted by Starfleet was in fact one created by the Vulcans, which makes sense, as in the early days of exploration, many of the star charts that Starfleet used were given to them by the Vulcan High Command. There are a few confirmed classifications that we find throughout the shows, and a myriad of others that come from materials such as books, including star chart atlases. But we'll begin with the confirmed classifications. Also, if I refer to human life, I generally mean oxygen, nitrogen, humanoid species from Trek. It's just quicker to say. So, let's play the alphabet game, but Star Trek style, and already I'm failing at the alphabet because I'm starting with M. An M-class world, short for the Vulcan term Minshara, makes up a very small percentage of the universe, but are the most visited in the series. This is because an M-class world is any planet that can support oxygen, nitrogen, breathing life, which included surface water and required very little adaptation to survive on the surface. Earth is obviously an M-class world, as is Vulcan. Despite the heat, which humans would find uncomfortable, a human beaming down to Vulcan would require no breathing apparatus, nor environmental suit. There was a subcategory of classifications for the M-class, 1 through to 4, but all were considered habitable and prime real estate for colonisation. Next to this we have the Class L. Class L planets are also habitable by most humanoid life, but have some feature that prevents them from being easily colonisable, such as a thinner atmosphere. These planets are very close to the M class, and with a little terraforming could easily support humans and others. Of course, they may have their own life forms already, so terraforming a planet might not be a great idea. An example of a Class L is the planet that featured in the DS9 episode The Ascent that Odo and Quark crash land on. It had vegetation, but none of it was edible, and it didn't have any fauna, therefore the environment by itself could not support human life. A Class K was a planet that required atmospheric domes for human habitation, so we're talking about a solid surface and tolerable gravity, but usually the atmosphere, temperature or other factors would kill if not for the protection. Colonies on this type of world are still not uncommon, but usually completely reliant on outside deliveries. A Class J planet is a gas giant akin to our own Jupiter. These planets are not suitable for colonisation as there is no surface to settle. Maybe some strange life has adapted to them somehow, but with atmospheric pressure and the like, we'll probably never know. There is also a subgroup of at least 9 variations which may refer to the atmospheric composition, because there is also a Class T planet, which is also a gas giant but seems to be one of a super size called Ultra Giant. The Voyager episode Good Shepherd featured a Class T. Class N planets are back to being solid ground, but are uninhabitable for humans, requiring a lot of adaptation and technology to support human life. It is worth noting though that Class N planets can be inhabited by a species that do not have the same atmospheric requirements as a human. Inhabitants from a Class N world, however, usually cannot mingle with Class M dwellers, even wearing breathing gear, as their atmospheric requirements are too severe. Venus is regarded as a Class N planet in apocryphal material. Class H was a classification of planets that is considered uninhabitable for human life due to intense radiation, even if it has oxygen in its atmosphere and water. Tau Cygni 5 has an oxygen-argon atmosphere, breathable by humans, but it was the intense hyperonic radiation that made it unlikely as a colony world. Despite this, however, some stranded individuals were able to eventually thrive there after becoming immune to the radiation. A Class D planet is a planet or planetoid of rock that is incapable of supporting human life due to a lack of atmosphere. You can see a Class D object quite clearly from Earth. Luna, our own moon, is considered a Class D planetoid. Due to their nature, they can be colonised, but terraforming is highly unlikely, instead requiring pressure domes to survive and usually artificial gravity to make up for the smaller mass of the objects. Though there has been the odd rule breaker that had an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. Class Y planets are colloquially known as Demon Class due to their hellish environment. Such planets have solid ground, but atmospheres that could burn, asphyxiate and poison all at once. These planets were even damaging to most technology and starships, and best avoided unless absolutely necessary. A Class Y planet was encountered and landed on by the USS Voyager in the episode Demon. Any life encountered here is going to be unlike anything humanoid. Type R is a terrestrial planet. Usually these planets are uninhabitable, but now we're moving into the unconfirmed territory. The Class R could apply to a rogue planet, and due to the fact that they orbit no star for warmth or energy, they are usually barren of life. However, several inhabited versions have been discovered, such as DAKALA and perhaps the Founder's Homeworld, though both of these planets can support human life, DAKALA due to the geological activity providing the atmosphere and warmth, and the Founder's World may be terraformed by the Great Link. The rest of these classifications have yet to be identified on screen. Class A are young geothermally active planets that are mostly molten. B is a barren world heated by very close proximity to a star, such as Mercury. Class C is a dead, rocky world, no heat, no life, and usually was once a different classification. E is a molten world too hot to support life, and a Class F is also molten but could sustain a habitat with effort. A Class G planet is one that has cooled to create a crystalline surface in places. Class I is a gas supergiant. O is reserved for Class M planets that have a high level of surface water, over 80%, so Earth would be close to this designation. Class P is a frozen world with a habitable atmosphere but generally survivable conditions provided care is taken and exposure minimal. Andoria would be considered such a planet as the surface would not kill you due to its composition, just its frigid temperature. Class Q planets are best surmised with a bit of everything. These planets are generally presented as habitable but are subject to extreme fluctuations that are extreme enough to change the classification of the planet. The Genesis planet would be one such short-lived example, and the Class S is another type of gaseous ultragiant. So there we have it. These are the known and speculated classifications of planetary bodies in Star Trek. I wonder what classifications U, V, W, X and Z are for. Then again, they might well not exist. I mean, what are the odds that there are as many planet types as there are letters in the English alphabet? Wait, for that matter, wasn't this based on a Vulcan directory? How many letters do they have? Whatever. Thanks for watching this video, and if you had to make up a type for a Class X planet, what would it be? I'm going to go with a planet that looks like a giant